All right. Why do birds suddenly appear every time you get near? 'Cause just like me, they long to be 6 feet from you. It's Rachel and Richard, and it's Sudbury Politics, the show. Welcome back, guys. It's good to see you again.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff. You're on point.
I'm lyrical genius over here.
Well, we're still more than 6 feet from each other. We got to wonder at some point. We probably should try doing a show where we're like stacked up 6 feet from each other. I think that would be a lot of fun. We're in the same place, but we're still social distancing. But maybe it's time for us to all go outside again. I think we're going to talk about that a little later in the show.
We could do the Ontario government chevron model, where each of us kind of does an awkward dance around each other to get to the mic, and we just stay like 6 feet behind each other with one person in the middle.
Because spontaneous dancing is allowed here, unlike Sweden.
Yes, apparently.
So, fellas,
I hear there's some kind of virus going around.
No, listen. I think we have agreed. Our next episode, we're going to talk about everything else other than the pandemic. So this will be a normal show, and next week we're going to do everything we can to spontaneously dance around COVID and its impacts and policy and politics that have to do with it. I think there's lots to talk about. The Tories leadership race is closing. If you're not a Tory member by the end of the day, for example, tough luck. You don't get to vote for one of those idiots.
At the end of Friday, not today.
Friday? Oh, tomorrow.
Friday. I better.
But today's Tuesday.
Better run out.
Oh, it was last week. Never mind.
No, today is Tuesday.
Yes. What?
It's Tuesday at 10 a.m. right now.
You know what? I'm so glad we're doing this, because I completely forgot what day it was. It's one of those pandemic things. Listen, we're asking a question. I have a question tonight for you two. Now that seniors are getting their $300 or $500 checks, I kind of feel like everyone's covered off. Are we done? Are we done finding ways to pay people in Canada for emergency COVID benefits? I think so.
I don't think so. I think you're going to see more and more people that have fallen through different cracks as part of this come forward. This kind of crazy piecemeal where these people get some money and then these people get some money based on whatever unique identifiers they have, always leaves rooms for cracks of people that get left behind. And you're going to see a lot of specific types of businesses. They're going to make a really good case about why they're worse off than others. A lot of personal services like massage parlor or massage studios, hairdressers, things like restaurants that can't.
Yes. Parlors. and others that are going to need stimulus packages.
Oh my God.
So listen,
we know.
The point is going. So not necessarily economic stimulus here, but I think your point is that there's still going to be specific bailouts, but are the big check runs to millions of Canadians all at one shot? Are we now done with those? Of all of them announced, do you think there's going to be another group within Canada that's going to get a whole big chunk of money who isn't getting it now? And I don't mean the business community, which is a whole other thing.
Well, yeah, business people are people too, Richard.
Yeah, they're the ones at the parlors. And anyways, so in terms of whether or not the feds will hand out more money to a specific community or group of Canadians, I'm not sure if they will, but I think there's merit in discussing whether or not they should be giving more of an incentive and more financial relief to the disability community. So for Ontarians who are on the Ontario Disability Support Payment, if they apply for CERB, so for that benefit, and that baseline, as we know, is $2,000 a month, if they apply for that, they can't get an additional top-up on their ODSP. So if they don't go for CERB and they're on ODSP, they can ask for $100 per individual and $200 per family monthly until July. But it's kind of that either or, which is interesting for me because the seniors are getting their existing, and then they're getting, a top up on top of that. And from what I'm hearing, some of the similar arguments in terms of why seniors and people with disabilities may need more money kind of overlap, in the sense of prescription costs are now monthly, those delivery fees if they need to get them delivered, or same with food. So for me, I think that that's one sector that I've seen missing and that I wanted to point out.
Yeah, I think this goes back to the whole UBI argument a little bit. Like, it's so bloody confusing about what magic group that you're supposed to fit into, the amount of money that the government's going to pay to unwind all of this after for people that got a CERB payment that weren't supposed to get a CERB payment. A lot of them aren't going to be able to afford to pay it back in the first place. And then you've got this argument that now seniors and people on disability have to be able to say, well, wait a minute. If you think $2,000 is the minimum somebody needs to get by, and we're only getting $1,500-ish, there's something wrong there. And I get that argument, and I think it's a valid argument to make. I always wonder, like, who is this person, this mythical person that must be out there that doesn't deserve some kind of funding, right? Because if you keep making all of these different programs for this group and for that group and for this group, well, who's the person that doesn't get the funding? Who's the person that you're okay with getting $0 all the time?
Well, I think that there should be the average person that is designed to get no extra special support, which is really runs counter. And I don't want to get too deep back into UBI. I'm going to flip this back around to two groups that specifically have been funded in different ways than the average worker has. But so I can't even point at myself, right? Because the provincial government threw some money at me. I got kids. The provincial government said, here's some more money because you're homeschooling your kids and you probably have some other weird expenses. And the federal government said, let's top up your child tax benefit. Like, I didn't ask for any of these things. But there you go. At least the child tax benefits are income tested, right? So yeah. It's based on how much income is coming in, determines how much actually is useful or is flowing. But let's look at a second at the disability support and social assistance group versus seniors in their concerns that have been raised. Now, it's a bit different because seniors their income supports flow federally, and so they're aiming their arguments at the federal government, whereas disability and social assistance are flowing provincially. So a little bit of a different audience for the message, but seniors have been asking, and I personally kind of think that it's been forwarded by the opposition in some way to highlight it. Where's the money for us? Where's the money for us? Nothing for seniors. Conservative politicians were were shouting high and low. And so they got $500 this week if you're on guaranteed income supplement, or $300 if you're on old age security, which is everybody who is drawing less than like $65,000 a year in income as an individual. So a top up, and I was asking the question, and because I'm interested in it, I'm actually legitimately interested in where the increase in expenses are, because transportation for lots of people is down as a cost. Activities and being out is down or gone, but I've heard food is up, and of course deliveries are up if you need to have things delivered, and there's a dispensing fee on drugs. So I guess the federal government said, fine, decent argument, here's a bit of cash. But that took several weeks of people pointing out seniors are getting nothing, and the social assistance group didn't get that.
Yeah, but this goes back to I'm going to bring it back to UBI again, because it goes back to the same thing. Why is one group need a different set of rules than another group, right? If you have need, and if you're, not able to work, you should be getting support. And the fact that, there was a set amount, there's basically a UBI for seniors existing. What happened? Why do they need this extra top up? Because they're getting the HST increase if they're in this low income bracket. There's some moderate increases, but there's probably some other savings that are happening right now because nothing's happening. It confuses the shit out of the system. For what? Like, why are we spending all of this time arguing about, well, this group needs an extra $200, and then we're going to spend an insane amount of money on all of the infrastructure to get that $200 out and figure out who deserves it and who doesn't, when you could just say, okay, everybody needs this much to get by. That's the basic we'll give you, and then we'll just claw it back on your taxes if you make money. It's insane. That each group needs their own special treatment.
Yeah,
what?
I mean, we did. Oh,
go ahead, Rachel. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna agree with Jeff in saying that, from the UBI standpoint, I mean, you run the risk if you don't do it that way of leaving out people that need this relief and need that assistance. And I just feel like, for me, as I mentioned, the disability community is the one that sticks out.
Yeah, there certainly has been a decent argument made that it would have been a good choice in this emergency situation, but I don't think that necessarily automatically leads to the UBI would be a good choice in regular time. And I think the reason is kind of underwritten by this. If there was a universal basic income, I think that people that are on it, just like some of the groups we've heard from, would be now asking for extra special emergency response benefits because expenses are changed or something's shifted, and there's still going to be EI. Right? So CERB is supposed to be replacing employment insurance, and far too few people actually qualify for. But if you do qualify for employment insurance, which a lot of laid off workers do in this time, they would be just getting their EI. Instead of getting EI, we're not going to bother with EI. We'll take from the EI fund and we'll pay it into CERB, and we'll just make it a lot easier and faster, and we'll figure it out. We'll do the accounting later.
One of the options with UBI is you get rid of EI.
I haven't heard that. A lot of the proponents for UBI in Canada, are not saying get rid of. It's focused on replacing Social Security, guaranteed income supplement, disability support, and welfare. Those are that's what UBI is supposed to do. But then the question is, what other niche programs and special supports have to be rolled into it? And so, you know, I think that what you end up with is you'd have a whole group of people who are 100% dependent on UBI, which is great. It's an income source, just like in other income supports, which have proven to be insufficient. So at what level do you resource universal basic income that makes it so much better than the universal basic income that seniors in Canada get right now, which is in the OAS and GIS process, or the extremely poorly resourced income supports that are provided by the provincial governments, particularly here in Ontario, which are just not enough to live on. If they're not enough to live on now, how much bigger would the UBI payment have to be for everybody in order to make it possible? And what's going to stop people in those categories from, in a time like this, asking for several $1 billion of extra emergency response? And that's the question that I think people aren't considering, that if there was a UBI in place, would people still be asking for more on top of it? And can we afford it?
I think anybody that's on one of these kind of entitlement programs, the tendency is always going to be to ask for more, regardless of where that line is. And there's always going to be a debate about what the line should be. The issue is how much do we invest in trying to figure out who doesn't qualify for some kind of social support versus just saying, well, how do you find this person that doesn't qualify for social support? Who's this magical person that doesn't deserve a basic income? If you can't find somebody that doesn't deserve it, why have a system to weed out the people that don't deserve it?
I guess those are good questions, because nobody has any answer. I'm not sure that you're posing the question exactly correctly. Income is mostly earned. Income is mostly earned. It's earned from work. It's not guaranteed. In a universal basic income, another set of language for universal basic income is guaranteed annual income. That's another language set to describe it, right? So it's income you're going to get. And, you know, I personally don't subscribe to the idea that UBI would create, you know, just a class of people that could work but don't. I don't think that's the issue. I think that it's not about who deserves what amount of money, but building a system that makes sure that everyone gets what they need. And I don't think that I don't think that I think that UBI automatically assumes that a baseline income amount is what everyone needs. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. And I think that there's a lot of evidence that says that there are people in certain cases that need less, and in some cases that need much, much more.
But the people that need more, it's easier to find the exception and pay them than to find the exception and exclude them. And that's what's happening right now, is we have a system that's built to try and find the exclusions instead of trying to find the exceptions. And if you turn that around, then we can move into something different. You know, we're waiting for this whole senior versus student argument is a good example of it, right? You had the students that had nothing, that had to fight to get a little bit, and then you've got the seniors that had some kind of income that wanted more. Why are we having that fight, right? Why those exclusions?
Good questions, Jeff. And speaking of exclusion, what I want to talk about this week, my question is staying at home like so last week, or what's going on here? Of course,
I'll see you at the dump. Let's all go to the dump. You know what? We should totally. We should totally do a show at the dump.
Why
That'd be a lot of fun.
Why the hell did we close the dump? It's something we haven't talked about yet. But God, if the grocery store can stay open and figure out a way to keep me 6 feet from somebody else, the dump really is a place that's that crazy, that wild, that needed to have, these kind of exclusions. The dump's crazy today because nobody's been able to go for 2 months.
Yeah.
But now you're herding everybody through it. But, it's a restricted entrance. They've got a gate there that lets the cars in. They could easily say, okay, well, you got to wait until there's enough space for you. I've never been within 6 feet of somebody at the dump in my life.
Well, the rationale that I was reading in the media is because when you do go out there and drop off all your trash, you tend to hang out with your buddies and all shoot the shit around each of the different trash piles. So that was the logic that I read. Can't say that I've done that either.
Wow.
I don't know if I define that as logic.
Well, yeah, true. You're right.
Roasting marshmallows at the tire fire.
But I think there was even talk about there being a live stream or something of the dump on the reopening day. Like I didn't know that this was such a concern, but then again.
So you've got the dump. You've got, province-wide, we've got now boat launch it. Like basically, it's like get outside, enjoy the provincial parks, which are open now for walking around. I can't believe that playgrounds aren't going to come soon, which is going to be nice because not everyone's got a place to play for their kids, and the playground would be nice to have. But I kind of feel like you're right, Rachel, that that the signal that was sent so strongly for the last 2 months is don't go out, don't do things, stay around, stay inside, and don't talk to anybody, don't do anything. Buy Amazon and have it delivered to your house, and
buy local.
Do pot. Yeah, no kidding. But do podcasts by Zoom, and that's it. I kind of feel like we're done with that.
Especially.
No, Jeff.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, Rachel. You go. Your turn.
No. I was just gonna say, and especially with the bonfire ban being lifted, I feel like that just adds to the go take your boat out, go take your tent out, and have a fire with all your buddies. So, Jeff, I'll let you carry on with that, but.
Always me carrying on. I really don't think that this is a message for everybody to go willy-nilly. We need to be smart as a society, and we got to have more trust in each other as citizens to not be stupid. We need to have a piece where people start getting back to somewhat normal, but maintain social distancing. I think golf was actually a reasonable example that, you can go golfing and not be anywhere near the other people that you're golfing with, have very little contact with anything. Maybe you make people wear gloves to pull the pole out of the pin, but that's about the only common touch point in golf, right? You need to have this slow back to normal or people are going to go crazy. And if you don't give people some kind of outage, people are going to start breaking the rules to not go crazy.
Don't you think they're already going to do that? Don't you think that the signal is the rules probably were dumb in the first place? Now we're getting over them. So over these rules, let's go out and just do whatever. I mean, Rachel, what are you seeing?
Well, I think too, if you look at the fact that they're opening up more retail stores to have shoppers inside, I know they say social distancing, but to me, if you're going to kind of open that floodgate and then say, okay, you can have a fire, but you can't like visit your parents still. We don't recommend that. You can't, have all your buddies in the house if you're having a fire, if they have to use the bathroom, like silly little things like that. I just feel like it's sending that mixed signal to people. And unfortunately, we have seen that sometimes, if you give people an inch, they're going to run a mile with it. And I feel like there's a lot of conflicting messaging right now with some of these policy changes.
Yeah, you're seeing other parts of the country, though, coming in with reasonable rules. So there's the bubble rule in Nova Scotia, where you're supposed to maintain a bubble of, I think it's 5 people. So you've got your 5 group of friends and you can associate with them, you can go to their house, but you don't go to other people's houses. And I think we can get to that point as reasonable human beings. And there might be times where the government has to say, okay, well, you guys took it too far and we're going to reel things back a bit. But we need to evolve back to something more normal, because when you have fewer and fewer people that are infected, there's fewer and fewer touch points for people to get infected, and the risk starts dropping, so you can start slowly reeling back.
Well, it's going to be 22 and sunny next week. We're gonna start experiencing the joy of summer, fleeting as it is, and I think that there's been some fear of enforcement. And I think that the enforcement is going to get a lot harder. I think that it's going to have to be a lot more arbitrary, or they're just not going to do it at all. It'll be one or the other. And my guess is that they'll probably just stop trying to enforce social distancing in any formal way. So we'll see if they keep handing out $880 tickets. And my guess is it's going to be very much harder to do that. Kind of like, smoking marijuana at a concert. When everyone's doing it and it's still not legal yet, it's impossible to enforce it. So if everyone starts just going outside and hanging out, what are they going to do? Are they going to Are they going to close it up? I don't think they're going to be able to.
You start by finding the podcaster that makes that argument.
Yeah, I was going to say the enforcement might get tough too if people are outside having a bonfire and everyone's ninjing around the city. So
yeah.
The distances are getting fewer. But with that being said,
well, we're skipping COVID next week, so what we'll do is in 2 weeks' time we'll answer our own question if whether or not everyone's gone outside again. We'll know in 2 weeks' time if we don't know now. So I guess that's it for this week. A little shorter episode, but still awesome to talk to you two. So thanks for joining us, everyone who listened in.
Yeah, and I can't wait, guys, till we can have beers and a bonfire and boat. All of Jeff's favorite things.
Anything else? What starts with B? That we can have?
I don't know. Parlor starts with P, so close, but. Cheers,
we'll
guys.
See you guys next Tuesday at 10.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.